hope that you're blessed by being a part of the service tonight with us. All right. It is what should be Ask the Pastor. I've got, if you don't have a question, I've got some place to go, but I'm willing to entertain any question that you might be troubling you or thinking about. And of course, if you spend any time on Facebook, man, there's all kind of questions that come up, and you can find plenty of questions. It amazed. I was having a discussion the other day with a fellow about Facebook theology, and most of it's wrong. So, anyway, so any questions? Yes, Don.
I was thinking about something I know you'll find hard with that I actually think, but sometimes I do.
Now speak up where the microphone can hear you now.
And I was thinking, heaven is 1,500 square miles.
Mm-hmm.
There's been over 100 million babies that died.
That's 1,500 miles this way, and that way.
Right. But over the time since Jesus, or the beginning of time, 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, there has to be millions and billions of people that's passed away, that's gone to heaven. Now, are they all in heaven? Because the Bible says the absent body is present with the Lord. I mean, heaven's only so big.
Okay.
So
all right.
If they're not there, where are they at? Where would they be at?
Now, go ahead, Dan.
I'll say well, they would
Actually,
all,
what he's describing is not heaven, is it?
yeah, I say, and two, they don't all go to the same place, because the people before their inheritance was on the earth. The Jews, their inheritance was down here. So the place you're talking about is the Holy City coming down, and the Holy City is only reserved for New Testament believers. So not everybody's going there.
To the new city.
Correct.
Right.
Now,
It's a giant.
Donald's question for you that may be watching on the internet is this. Since we know the heavenly city, now, see, everybody calls that heaven. It's got walls of jasper, gates of pearl, street of gold. Everybody talks about that heaven. Go to Revelation chapter 21. And it's 1,500 miles square. 1,500 miles that way, and that way.
Really, that'd be
So it's a whole lot more than 1,500. I mean,
1,500 miles cubed.
cubed, yes, for
Really,
50,
it's not squares.
1,500 miles cubed. So I'm not exactly sure as to what the square mileage of that would be.
Brother Wade will figure it out with his little finger.
Yeah, I'm sure Wade's calculating him back there now.
Figure it out, Wade.
It's 1,500 miles cubed. What is that? But Revelation 21, God speaking, and John speaking, and he said, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Why? Because the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. And of course, Peter tells us how they passed away, with a fervent heat. Right now, we understand that. Now again, that's at the end of Revelation 20, when when death and hell and all non-believers are cast into the lake of fire. Now, that's a whole other question there. If all of that, since we know what we consider hell now is in the belly of the earth, what happens to everything that gets cast into the lake of fire? Where's that lake of fire? If it's inside the earth, then what happens when the old earth is done away with? But anyway, that's another question possibly. And so, but we got a new coming, and he said, so there's a brand new heaven and a brand new earth. And verse 2, I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem is the name of it, coming down from God out of where? It comes out of heaven. So it's not heaven. The place where the walls of jasper, gate of pearl, street of gold, where there's no sun there and there's no night there, that is not heaven. That is the holy city, New Jerusalem. Now, your question was this, right? Now, so we know of all the deaths of all the ages, not counting those preborn babies that were murdered in their mother's womb. I mean, if the holy city is 1,500, what does, how does everybody get packed in there? Well, I think that, and we covered this really pretty good in depth back some years ago when I was teaching through Revelation on Wednesday night. But it comes from we have a Hollywood conception and a Branson City, Missouri conception, country music, and Nashville conception of what heaven is. everybody calls the holy city heaven, and that's where we're all going to heaven. Oh, we're going to see. Well, not actually. As Dan said, where's the Jews' inheritance, eternal inheritance? We're standing on it. Yeah, you know, well, not far from it comparatively. Yeah, I mean, well, we're standing on the old version. There's a new version coming,
Yeah,
all right?
version 1.0. Still
Yeah.
2.0.
Yeah, that'd be version 2.0, Earth 2.0.
Yeah.
Okay? That's going to be where all the Jews and Old Testament believers were. Now, remember the Eastern weddings of the day. When did a young man get, he might be betrothed or engaged to a young lady. When did he go get her and to marry her? What's that?
After the house was built.
Where was the house built, though?
Onto his daddy's.
Onto his daddy's house. Now, Jesus said in John 14, I go to prepare a place for you. I'm going to build onto my daddy's house. Yes.
That just hit me. And that's funny because he's not going to come for you. So, I mean, it's a silly thought, but think of the fact he knows exactly how many people are coming, and he's building on rooms for everybody when he gets finished. That's when it's done.
When the last one stayed, he's coming.
That's right.
Well, actually, when the last room's done,
Uh-huh.
so he's already been making room for enough for everybody, and because it says when the bridegroom's finished, he comes.
Mhm.
So he's been preparing. So he's been being a carpenter for quite some time now.
So this is all taking place. So the new house for the bride of Jesus Christ. That's who's going to be living in that holy city. The bride of Jesus Christ. Okay? Now who's the bride of Jesus Christ? The church. The New Testament church is the bride. So yeah, there's plenty of room for the New Testament church. And again, you think about it because we're thinking linear. Because we have a city that built 1,500 miles that way. Well, you know, for all practical purposes, we humanoids, you get above skyscraper level and it's useless for us. Okay. The tallest skyscraper is not even a mile. So what good's 1,500 miles that way if you can't use it, if it's unused space? But remember, we're going to be glorified bodies. Your apartment may be on the 9,210th level.
You don't need a door.
You won't need all you have to do is go, okay, I'm going home now. You're there.
There's no hallways, no cubes.
There's no-
It's just cubes.
So it boggles our mind to begin to think about it, doesn't it? Because now look with me at the end of Revelation chapter 21.
If you don't have a hallway and a door, how does a guest ask to come in and they just pop in? Like, stop popping in, literally.
Well, you got a guest portal, you little blocked-in room there. That's where you pop in at.
Oh, okay. All right. A little more here.
Look at the end of Revelation 21. Let's pick up. He's described the 12 gates in verse 31. The 21, 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every individual gate was of one pearl. Man, those must have been some big oysters manufacturing those suckers. And the street of the city, again, you heard me point that out. We've talked about streets of gold. No, there is a single street, and it leads to the throne. Only one street of gold. That's why we will need streets. We won't need streets. We're not going to be driving on them. We won't need to drive because we're going to be glorified bodies. We're going to think it and boom, we're there. Huh?
Right.
I'm sure about that.
But you,
Your boy's going to have 10,000 questions when you get home tonight.
you're welcome. Don't mention it, you will.
And he said, and the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple. Yeah. The Lord God, Jesus Christ. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it. And the Lamb is the light there. Who's the Lamb? Jesus Christ. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the what? The nations shall walk in the light. Now, where are they going to be walking? The city's coming down from God out of heaven. It's going to hover. I know it sounds like sci-fi, but that's just what it is. It's going to hover. The nations of the what? The earth. The kings of the earth. They're going to be down here walking in the light. So we won't need the big globe that's out there now, 93 million miles away from us.
Right.
Because it's getting replaced by the light from the holy city. It's going to be there. The earth is still going to be rotating. It's going to get not nighttime on earth, just not in the holy city. Why? Does it ever get dark on the sun? Nope. How what?
It'll be the last city that never sleeps.
It'll be the last city that never sleeps. It will, you see it up the neon lights flashing on its gate, No, I'm just kidding.
No.
But again, so what you see here, you have the nations and the kings of the earth to bring their glory and honor into it. They're coming back and forth. The city is going to have gates, but the gates are not going to be closed and locked. When did you close and lock the gates? Either when the enemy was coming or it got night. Neither is going to happen then, so the gates will be eternally open. And people, the kings of the earth, how are they going to be getting up there? Remember, the people here are going to have glorified bodies too. It's just where you're living. Now again, we still haven't got to heaven. The truth is, find me one scripture that says we go to heaven when we die.
The other part is word of God.
Huh?
And say the other part is word of God.
Wherever God is, that's heaven.
Well, it says the Lamb will be there, but where is God the Father?
He's going to be in heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
Overseeing all,
Which is separate from
the holy city.
The question is, do we ever go see him?
Well, I'm sure we will. I mean, if Satan sees him, Satan sees him today. Satan goes to heaven. Now, right now, saints go to heaven, I believe. But they're going, because why? That city will come from God out of heaven. There are people living in the, they're walking around up there saying, pardon our progress, when we're, just kidding. I wonder if my mom and dad are, is their mansion completed? Or is it still under completion? I know it is. But what I'm saying is all of our theology about heaven has been taught not from the scriptures, but from music and movies, has it not? And we have, and to be brutally blunt, a lot of it has come from the Catholic Church, because that's what the Catholic Church is taught. That you can earn your way to, and that's what, the whole doctrine of purgatory and so forth, and versus going to heaven. And so, what heaven is, what we call heaven is the holy city. And so, people will be populating the earth, people will be populating the holy city, and who knows, people may be populating other planets. We don't know. The Bible does not address that, but it doesn't put it beyond the realm of possibility. And so, notice what it says in verse 25, and the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night. What's that next word? There. Now, people say in eternity there's never going to be any night. That's not true. There's not going to be any night there. Where? The holy city. Because you've got an eternal light that is the Son of God, shining more brilliant than our current sun. It can't get night. Because in him is no darkness at all. Right? And so what we have is a holy city that is basically the sun itself, and the earth is still rotating. How do I know that, by the way? Look with me in chapter 22. He showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life. Last time you saw that was Genesis 3, wasn't it? Which bare 12 manner of fruits, yielded her fruit every what? Month. So what does that tell us? That seasons and days and nights will still be tracked. Right? Because he says it's going to have a different fruit every single month. Now we know that it won't get dark in heaven, or what we call heaven, the holy city, but it will continue to have seasons and days and months and weeks and so forth. Yes?
I don't know why it says the leaves of it are for the healing of the nations. Why do the nations need healing?
Well, now that's a good, Dan, if you're listening on the YouTube, Dan asked a question. It said, and the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Why is there need for healing? Any thoughts? You may tell you what, you may give you my answer on that? Don't know. I've read on it, studied on it. We do, you see, there are a lot, again, what have we been taught that is historical, traditional, but not biblical? Now, for the healing of the nations. Now, by the way, why is there a tree of life? What's the point of it? Now, why was Adam and Eve put out of the Garden of Eden? So that they would not eat of the tree of life and live forever. I wonder, do we have to go by and take a bite of fruit every once in a while? I don't know. Why are the leaves of it for the healing of the nations? Even though we are in glorified bodies, we are in perfection. Does that mean there's still never going to be any issues to be dealt with? Why would you need healing of the nations? By the way, when God created it all, including Satan himself, he was Ezekiel said he was created perfect. Yet he still had the ability to make a wrong choice, didn't he? Well, now we won't have the sin nature anymore. It won't. We won't have that anymore because we'll be in a glorified, resurrected body. Again, what you realize is that much of what because look with me at the end of chapter 22, verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city. So there's going to be some who denied the tree of life. What's the tree of life for? You can read all you want to, and you'll not come to any definitive answer. Now, look at the next. For outside what? Outside the city are dogs, sorcerers, whoremongers, murderers, idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Did that just shoot your theology, eternity theology in the foot? You see where I'm going at? Now, what happens? I thought all of that was done away with. I thought death and hell and the lake of fire took care of all of that. Now are y'all confused as a termite and a yo-yo? Let me explain this to you the best way I know how, and that's what I talked through it. I wish I'd have known this question. I'd have brought my notes with me if I known this was going to be the question. Because I'm just operating from memory now, and at almost 62 years old. That's my hard drive is corrupted. Yeah. What are you laughing at back there, Wade? Yours is too, buddy. Oh, Dan said you're still on floppy disk. But my point is this, is that a lot of our theology of eternity in heaven is not biblically based. It's historical, what we've been taught. It's traditional, hand-me-down. And a lot of things that we have held to in practice, I've discovered over the years, is just simply that. Historical and traditional and not biblical. That's the reason why we've made so many changes in our church over the past years. Because we want to be biblical. We don't care about being historical and traditional. We want to be biblical, right? That's why we do what we do. Now, again, we do know this about the holy city. No sin. Because that's where he is, and sin cannot be in his presence. We understand that. We understand there's not going to be any sin in heaven, proper heaven. Wherever that holy city came down from, where God the Father resides eternally, no sin there. On earth, that's the question. Now, with those that are going to be living on earth, the Old Testament saints, the Jewish nation, and of course, Jerusalem, Israel will be the focal point of all that goes on the earth. Will there ever be an issue there? Go ahead.
That's the other thought. When they give back the earth, they get their inheritance. Their inheritance wasn't the whole earth. They weren't inheriting the whole earth. They were inheriting a specific section of the land.
Israel's inheritance is that part from what we call modern day Iraq and Iran all the way down to Egypt.
So, who's living in the rest?
Who's populating the rest of the earth?
And
Kings
those
of
are
the earth.
nations that need to be healed, and then they all go, kings of the earth, they all go to Jerusalem. So, who else is there? And it's a little weird there.
And will they have the ability to make poor choices? And of course, we know from over in Isaiah that during the millennium time, when Jesus Christ is ruling and reigning here, humanoids will be on planet Earth. They will sin, but the moment they sin, they die, according to Isaiah.
So they populate the new earth when it happens. I wonder if they populate the new earth when that happens. That's weird.
And so there are humanoids coming out of the millennium. Are they all going to be changed? I see theologian Wynn. You got an answer? We're getting deep on this one, aren't we? But again, do you understand what I'm talking about? We always sing these songs and everything's so clear-cut, and it's really not that clear-cut. Because again, you've got humanoids that are going to be making it all the way through the tribulation. The millennium.
You've got the clouds and harps yet. Where's that?
Oh yeah, the clouds and the harps and floating around. And, yeah, you won't find that in the book of Revelation either.
Revelation 23?
Revelation chapter 23, yeah.
Okay. Right. It's a writing.
It's an appendage to the. But again, see, where we're coming from on this is what we need to do. You say, well, how does that help us now? Tell you what we do know. Get busy about trying to point people to Jesus. Because we do know that everybody who's a part of the New Testament church, their eternal home, we're not going to be staying in the city 24/7. Face it, even though it's 15, wouldn't that be more like a prison for you after maybe 100 years, wouldn't it?
The Holy House.
Oh, that's a motorcycle. But so we'll have jobs and responsibilities. Now we do know that Jesus said in Matthew, he talked about the servants who were faithful. He said, you've been faithful over a few things, I'll make thee ruler over many things. You've been ruler over a few cities in the book of Luke account, I'll make thee ruler over 10 cities. Now, we do know that there are going to be kings and people. In Revelation 21 says it. You see, we've got this idea, again, another false idea is that when we all get to heaven, everybody's going to be the same, everybody's going to be equal, everybody's going to be doing the same thing. No. Not so. It's not happening that way. You get into heaven, you get into the holy city, you get eternal life by faith in Christ alone. What you do in all eternity is based on what you do here. Rewards are the also rewards that's at the judgment seat of Christ. Some will be kings ruling over nations on earth. You may live in the holy city, but you may have a job going down and running a nation every day. How about that? And if everybody's perfect and can't make mistakes, what's the point in having any authority at all? Have you ever thought about that one? These are things that, in my weird mind, I kick around, and I have no absolute solution to them. And you'd be surprised at the number of commentaries that simply do not address the obvious questions. And I'm amazed how they just kind of gloss over it. They'll just make a statement, boom, they'll move on to something else.
No answer is better than the wrong.
Yeah, I suppose so. No answer is better than a wrong answer. But that's where we are. And eternity, we know this. Being in eternity with Jesus Christ himself is heaven. That's going to be wonderful. But again, we're not all going to be doing the same thing. Some will be kings. Some will be sweeping the golden street. I mean, there will be things to clean up. Horses make messes. We know there's horses at least, don't we? And, well, that's in the millennium, yes.
And there's going to be tons of dogs.
All dogs don't go to heaven.
They don't?
No.
Oh.
We know cats go to the other place.
Amen.
Yes.
I hope no cat lovers watching right now. So, I don't know what, did I answer your question, Donald?
Yeah.
There's going to be so many more. The holy city is just one place to live. And it's the condo for the bride of Christ. And in there are many mansions, many rooms. Some translations put it, I prefer the mansion translation.
Myself, yeah.
And but either way, it's going to be a wonderful place.
So if it's reward or lack thereof reward, is it got the people up top that have the view, and they've got the big house, and you get down to the bottom, and you're in the 300 square foot efficiency apartments.
Well, just build me a cabin in the corner of heaven, as the old song says. That's foolish.
I'd rather have a view.
Are you going to be at the nosebleed setters on the 1,500 mile floor, 1,500 miles up?
You got a view.
Got a view? I mean, you're viewing, and as you're viewing, Saturn's right there.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's his thoughts. Isn't it a wonderful thing about what it's going to be like? Like you said, you're going to be able to think, boom, and you're there. You just walk it. You won't need a door. You just walk through the wall, or just appear. It's what Jesus did. We're going to be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Even David, as I was reading in the Psalms this morning, he said, I will awaken in thy likeness. He said, I'm going to be like him. David even said that. How about that? So, a question to be had. Thank you. That was a good one. Did you follow? I saw another way over here following along pretty good. Anything else you want to add? Well, God bless you for being here tonight. And it's a joy to have you here. All right. But go ahead and shut that off, Brother Dan.